Two red cars in the driveway.
It's at the corner of East and East Des Moines.
Yeah, East Court and East Des Moines Street.
This map is oriented with north to the top, is that right?
That's correct.
Which direction would the surveillance video have been shooting or captured where it captured the jogger?
That would be going to the east towards Boundary.
Right. And the judge is looking over your shoulder. Can you indicate where Boundary Street is located?
It's directly in the center of the map here.
And the jogger, believed to be Mollie Tibbetts, would have been jogging north on Boundary?
That's correct.
And then is there a county road that veers off of Boundary to the northeast?
Yes, it's 385th Avenue.
And is that believed to be the area where Mollie Tibbetts would have been jogging?
Yes.
And officers viewed this surveillance video, correct?
That's correct.
You've seen it as well, is that right?
Yes.
And I know there's been some testimony about this already from Deputy Kivy, but there's a Malibu with chromed handles and mirrors that is observed in the video.
That's correct.
That drew your attention?
Yes.
For what reason?
It's a point last seen, so there's a potential witness there. We knew Mollie was in the area. We knew that black Malibu was in the area where Mollie was. Later on, we were able to determine that it appeared as if that black Malibu was doing circles around East Des Moines and then up to Middle Street, then back down to East Des Moines.
Was it of interest to law enforcement to find out who was associated with that Malibu?
Absolutely.
By the way, as part of the other parts of the investigation relating to Mollie Tibbetts, there's been some information concerning her normal routines on jogging. Were other people interviewed that had seen her on the evening of July 19th of 2018 running?
Yeah, she was seen on the 18th of July.
I'm sorry,
running.
July 18th.
And there was a canvass done out on 385th where there were people that had seen her out there that night.
So that's how you knew what her general direction would have been.
Correct.
How would Mollie Tibbetts have been dressed the night that she was jogging and went missing?
She generally just wore like a sports bra and like running tight shorts.
Was a pink sports bra and black spandex shorts recovered from the scene where she was
They were, and that's what we believe she was wearing that night.
Was there also a headband?
Don't recall the headband, but sounds correct, yes.
All right, and running shoes?
Yes.
Which can be seen in our photos, is that right?
That's correct.
So you became familiar with then what Deputy Kivy observed as it relates to the Chevy Malibu, is that right?
That's correct.
Based upon Cristhian Rivera's connection to the Malibu, did you learn if he drove any other vehicles?
We did. The day that we were out at the farm, he identified an Altima that he was driving to.
Do you know who the Altima was associated with?
It was, I always mix these two up. One of them's registered to his ex-girlfriend, one's registered to his cousin.
Neither of the vehicles is registered to him.
Neither one is registered to him, no.
Did you become aware that Cristhian Rivera worked at Yerby Farms?
Yes, I did.
All right, and that he lived on that farm property?
Yes.
What type of residence did he live in, if you know?
It was a trailer.
All right, so was there a plan developed that you were a part of to canvass Yerby Farms?
Yes.
Did that canvass have a dual purpose?
It did.
What was that?
We wanted to, obviously because Mr. Rivera was at the point last seen, we wanted to interview him. We thought at a minimum he would be a witness. But we also, just with every canvass, we were there to gather information. As I said before, those maps contained red dots of every place that we canvassed, and we had not canvassed that farm yet. So there's actually several purposes to going there.
Did you go to the farm on August 20th?
No, I did not.
All right. Were Homeland Security agents assisting you in the canvas and contact with Cristhian Rivera?
Yes, they were.
Why were they involved?
They were involved because it was known in this area that there were a lot of Hispanic males out there. This was not a case that we were worried about immigration status, but these Homeland Security investigators, they were very comfortable with talking to people in Spanish, so they were basically there for translation purposes.
Was one of those agents Mike Fischels?
Yes.
Is that someone you had worked with before?
Yes.
To your knowledge, is Mike Fischels proficient in the Spanish language?
Yes, I think he even has a degree or something in it, yes.
While at the farm, consent was obtained from Mr. Rivera on the Malibu as well as the Altima, is that right?
That's correct.
Were you part of that process at all?
No.
To your knowledge, was the Malibu at the farm in the building or near the building where Cristhian Rivera was working?
It wasn't where he was working, it was at his residence.
There was a subsequent search by DCI, a crime scene team, is that right?
Yes.
Were there items or was there anything found of interest in the trunk of the Malibu?
Yes, there were two areas where they discovered blood. One was the rubber seal of the trunk, and the other was the liner of the trunk.
Inside the trunk?
Inside the trunk.
Both of the results of that was Mollie Tibbetts' DNA?
Yes.
And that was blood, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, as it relates to the Malibu, did you have anything to do with obtaining a search warrant?
Yes, I wrote a search warrant for the Malibu.
Okay, and when did you do that?
It was the night of the 20th at the sheriff's office.
Okay. You were familiar, or you were aware that consent had been obtained, is that right?
We were.
So
yes.
what was the purpose then in getting a search warrant?
You can always withdraw consent, for one. I often I guess I'm redundant with some of the stuff I do. I can't remember the timing exactly, but Mr. Rivera had put him as the point last seen, said he was there and that he had saw Mollie, he liked the way she looked, he had turned around to follow her. At that point, we kind of had at least a suspicion that he could have been involved in her disappearance.
Okay, look at Exhibit 21, please, on your monitor. What is Exhibit 21?
It's the search warrant for the Malibu.
And is this a search warrant that you were the affiant on?
Yes.
Would you have written the affidavit that's associated with the search warrant?
Yes, I would have.
At this time of the search warrant, had the interview of Cristhian Rivera already occurred?
It was ongoing.
You presented this search warrant to a local magistrate here in Poweshiek County,
That's correct.
and it was signed.
Yes.
And the search of the Malibu, when did that occur?
During the course of the interview with Mr. Rivera.
After the search warrant was obtained,
Yes.
and after consent would have been obtained?
Yes.
And the search was done by the lab team?
The Iowa DCI lab team, yes.
Who was the head of the lab team?
Amy Johnson.
All right, I want to shift gears just a bit again. Agent Vileta, were you present for the interview of Cristhian Rivera on August 20th and 21st at the Poweshiek County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, I was.
You did play a role in that, is that correct?
Yes.
Towards the end of the interview?
Yes.
All right, well, prior to the interview, why did you gain the assistance of Pamela Romero and Jeff Fink from the Iowa City Police Department?
Iowa City had reached out to us very early in this investigation saying that they had very proficient Spanish speakers in case we needed them. So they were kind of like on our on-call list in case we had a Spanish interview.
Is Pamela Romero somebody you've worked with before?
She had shown up previously in the case, and just as part of a canvass of an area where we thought there might be Spanish speakers. So I knew of her, but not necessarily worked with her.
To your knowledge, is Pamela Romero fluent in Spanish?
Yeah, Spanish is her first language. I think she immigrated here at a young age, so she's very, very good at Spanish, yes.
Jeff Fink is also a proficient Spanish speaker, as far as you know.
Yes, that's correct.
Was a decision made in the investigation to assign Pamela Romero to interview Cristhian Rivera at the sheriff's office?
Yes.
And why was that you chose her?
Her specifically, because I get nervous with these interviews that a lot of the stuff that we say gets lost in translation. I don't speak Spanish, so I don't know how that goes. And Pamela seemed to really be engaged with Mr. Rivera.
Whenever Cristhian Rivera was provided transportation to the sheriff's office, who did that?
A DCI agent, Scott Green.
Right. Were you at the sheriff's office when he arrived?
I was in the command center. Scott Green put him in the lobby and told me that he was there.
Okay. Was Cristhian Rivera under arrest?
No, he was not.
Was he handcuffed or restrained in any way?
No.
If he would have left, would you or any other officer have stopped him?
No, we probably would not have known he had left. There's no one out there.
Okay. So, did you go out into the lobby to greet Cristhian Rivera?
I did. I just went out there, introduced myself, said that we have some people coming down from Iowa City that could talk to him better than I could, and asked him to be patient. I think I did that just maybe twice.
Did you speak to Cristhian Rivera in English?
Yes.
Was there anybody there to interpret for you?
No.
Was he able to communicate with you?
He smiled and nodded, so I assumed he knew what I was saying.
Did he ever speak any words of English to you?
I don't recall.
Did he keep his cell phone?
Yes, I think the second time when I went out there, I think he was on his cell phone.
On his cell phone in what way?
It looked like he was texting or...
Did you ever make any statement to him that would have given any indication that he was restrained or under arrest?
No, the only real statement I made to him was I apologized for the wait and thanked him for sticking around.
Do you know where he was seated in the lobby?
There's kind of a few chairs when you come into the lobby. There's this, I don't know, they're like chairs that would be at a desk at school. I think he was just at one of those.
Okay, was he just outside the door that would have led back to the interview room?
He was, but he was also basically facing the door to leave the building.
I'm going to have you look at Exhibit 18. Exhibit 18 is the lobby, is that correct?
That's correct.
There's a chair that we see. Is that the chair that Cristhian Rivera was seated in?
That's correct.
Anybody else in the lobby that you saw?
Scott Green was there just for a few minutes until I showed up, but then Scott came back with me. I don't remember anybody else being in that lobby.
To your knowledge, was Mr. Rivera left unattended?
Yes.
How long did it take Pamela Romero and Jeff Fink to get to the sheriff's office?
It was a minimum of an hour. They're coming from Iowa City, so I just seem to remember it taking at least an hour.
Now, you had indicated that you made an observation of Mr. Rivera in the lobby texting.
Yes.
This is on a smartphone, like an iPhone.
Yes.
Was that phone ultimately seized as part of the investigation?
Yeah, several hours later, yes.
Describe your observations of him on the cell phone. Was he typing with his fingers?
Yeah, he's just looking down. He looked up at me when I came in to apologize again for the wait. Just kind of seemed relaxed and unconcerned as to what was happening.
Okay. Later, did you view some of those text messages?
Yes,
Were they in Spanish?
yes,
But they would have been text message typed by Cristhian Romero, and there would have been text message received by him.
yeah, Christian, yeah.
I'm sorry, Cristhian Rivera.
Yeah.
I apologize. All right, during the interview, Agent Vileta, what was your role?
So generally when we do these, I manage the interview, so I observe, and then when we take breaks, we strategize. However, I don't speak Spanish. The lead FBI agent that was watching did not speak Spanish. So we're basically relying on Pamela and Jeff Fink to tell us what was being said, and then sometimes we could feed them questions.
All right, we have on a summary sheet that states Exhibit 10 that the interview started at approximately 5:04 p.m. on August 20th. Is that your recollection?
Yes,
And that would have been 2018, correct?
yes,
Were you able to observe the interview?
yes.
How did you do that?
Just a monitor. The room was video recorded, so we could watch it on a monitor.
So what I'm getting at is, were you right next door?
Yes,
Okay, and were you in a room that had a door that was closed?
yes.
If Cristhian Rivera would have come out of the interview room, would there have been any other law enforcement presence in the hallway?
No, we would have, I think the only other people in there would have been in the monitor room.
In your observation of the interview, most of it is in Spanish,
That's correct.
which you did not understand.
No,
All right, and would you have relied on Pamela Romero and Jeff Fink to translate that for you?
yes,
At one point in the interview, Pamela Romero brings up with Mr. Rivera a black hair, or a long black hair that was found in the Malibu.
that's correct.
Where did Pamela Romero receive that information from?
Our lab team, as they were searching the car, they notified me, I think, that a presumptive test showed that there was blood in the trunk, and they had also found long black hairs in the trunk.
Okay. Did that turn out to be accurate information?
The blood, but not the hair. Yes,
Despite that, you thought it was accurate at the time?
absolutely, yes.
Did you pass that back to Pamela Romero and Jeff Fink for use in the interview?
Yes,
All right. Agent Vileta, at around, there were multiple breaks that were taken. Would that be true?
lots of breaks, yes.
At around 11:30 p.m., there was a break taken where you, Pamela Romero, and Jeff Fink would have had a discussion outside the presence of Cristhian Rivera. Do you recall that?
Yes,
Was a decision made concerning involving HSI, or Homeland Security, ICE, and Cristhian Rivera's immigration status?
yes.
Describe for the court what that conversation was.
We actually had, I don't know a good way to describe, we were basically stuck in the interview where we thought he might be done. We also had the presumptive test of blood in the trunk, so we thought that he could be involved in the disappearance or ultimately murder of Mollie. So we don't want him to leave. We had his immigration status was, we believe that he was undocumented, illegal immigrant. So we put him on the phone with ICE. They put a detainer on him so he wouldn't be able to flee.
Okay. So at this point in time, at 11:30, Cristhian Rivera was under arrest.
Yes, he was no longer free to go.
At any time prior to 11:30, had Cristhian Rivera made any attempt to leave where anyone stopped him?
No, and that happened to us before in the past. We just If it's voluntary and they want to leave, they can leave.
Who was the agent from immigration that was on the phone with Cristhian Rivera?
It's Mike Fischel.
Okay, was that conversation in Spanish?
Yes.
Mike Fischels will be a much better person to discuss what that conversation entailed.
Yes.
So whenever Pamela Romero went back into the interview room, was it your understanding that she was going to read Miranda warnings to Cristhian Rivera?
Yes.
All right, we have now learned that she did not read him one of those Miranda warnings, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Was she in the room by herself whenever she read those warnings?
Yes, she was.
All right, and you did not provide her a card or a sheet to read off of, is that right?
That's right.
All right. The interview continued?
It did.
At one stage of the interview, you and another officer, another agent, enter the room.
Yes, we did.
Do you remember about what time that was in the interview? What time of morning?
I don't. It was several hours in.
Was it later in the interview?
Yes, much later.
All right. So why did you and this other agent enter the interview and start asking questions?
Again, Pamela kind of hit a sticking point. We just wanted to try a different approach, so we used like an integrity theme,
Okay.
way to describe it.
You don't speak English.
I do speak English.
I'm sorry, so you don't speak Spanish?
I don't speak Spanish, no.
Sorry. Maybe I don't speak English so well. But you don't speak Spanish.
No, not at all.
All right. And who was the other agent that was with you?
Nick Potratz from the FBI.
Did Romero and Fink remain in the room whenever the two of you asked questions of Mr. Rivera?
Yeah, Romero did.
And was she the one who provided the translation?
She did.
During the time that you were, and we can see this on video, correct?
Yes.
But did you ever threaten Cristhian Rivera in any way?
No, I consistently am always respectful to the people that I interview.
Did you make him any promises?
No, I'm not in a position to make any promises.
Did you ever tell him he wouldn't be charged if he would just tell you what happened?
No.
Did you tell him that you did not know what was going to happen to him?
Yes.
You know approximately how long you're in the interview with him?
It's 30 minutes, roughly.
And the content of your interview with him is on video, correct?
Yes.
That you've reviewed.
Yes,
That's part of the record in this case, is that right?
that's correct.
And also, it's there's a transcript that indicates the questions that were asked and the answers that were given.
That's correct.
And you've had a chance to review those, correct?
Yes, I did.
Anything about your part of the interview that is incorrect that's on the transcript?
No,
Any part of the interview that you were involved in that's on the video that has been edited or removed in any way?
no.
After your interaction with Cristhian Rivera, were you a part of the drive to where Mollie Tibbetts was ultimately located?
Yes, I was.
Were you in the vehicle with Mr. Rivera and others, or were you in a separate car?
I was in a separate car.
Were you following them?
Yes.
Where did you go first once you left the sheriff's office?
We drove over to Cristhian Rivera's residence. I think it was used. He needed to go there as a point of, like a start point of reference.
And did you go from that point?
Yes.
Were there any detours, stops, or wrong turns on the way that you know of?
No, I think, no, I think we drove straight there.
Okay, was there, whenever you get down to the location where Mollie Tibbetts was ultimately found, 2478 460th Avenue, do you drive past that location?
No.
Okay, was there a turnaround at a T
Yeah,
intersection?
there was a turnaround. It seems like we got a little mixed up there, but we like stopped and then corrected ourselves.
Okay. So what was your role then at this location at 2478 460th Avenue?
Cristhian Rivera, he had basically kind of gave us a general area where she might be.
Pointing where Mollie was located.
That's true, yes.
Do you recall that?
Yes,
Was Mollie found shortly after he pointed out an area where she was located?
yes.
Were you there whenever he did that?
No, I was still in the corn, but FBI agent Nick Potritz was the one that had discovered her. And then he yelled out that he had found her, and then we all kind of went to that area.
And that was done at Mr. Rivera's direction,
Yes,
albeit requested by law enforcement, right?
yes.
Did you have some contact then after this happened? Well, let me back up. After Cristhian Rivera got out of the vehicle, did he go back to the car that he had been driven there in?
Yes,
Did he get back in the car with Pamela Romero?
yes.
Did you have some brief discussion with Pamela Romero regarding Miranda warnings prior to getting in the car?
Yes, so there was a significant break between questioning. I can't remember, it had to be 45 minutes or so since we had last really questioned him on anything. In the DCI, we do what we call a refresher or reminder of Miranda, where we would remind them that we gave them their rights earlier and ask them if they still wanted to talk to us. Some departments will still just they'll just reread Miranda when we tell them to do that. I suppose either way is acceptable. So I just basically told her if she's gonna begin talking to him again to remind him of Miranda.
And how Pamela Romero would have reminded him of Miranda warnings or given him Miranda warnings would have been at her discretion, correct?
It would have, yes.
You didn't hand her a card.
No,
You didn't get in the car with her.
no,
You didn't hear it happen.
no.
After after having this conversation with Pamela Romero, did you remain in the area?
Yes,
Medical examiner was called.
yes,
Crime scene team.
yes.
Investigation began then in the cornfield. Is that right?
That's correct.
Concerning Miranda, Agent Vileta, was there any plan by law enforcement or orchestrated effort by law enforcement to read Miranda by just leaving out one right?
No, I could not imagine even coming up with that idea.
Was there a plan to do try to obtain an unwarned statement from Cristhian Rivera?
No, we had all believed that she said it correctly.
So any right that would have been omitted in the first Miranda warning would have been a mistake,
Absolutely.
not part of a plan.
No.
Just one second. During the interview, Agent Vileta, was Cristhian Rivera ever deprived of food?
No.
Was he provided a meal at one point?
Yes, he was.
Was that just before the 11:30 break?
Yes.
Was he provided water?
Yes.
Was he asked numerous times in the interview if he wanted anything?
Yes, several times. Yes.
Prior to 11:30, prior to the reading of the deportation detainer, was Cristhian Rivera allowed to keep his cell phone?
Yes, and I believe he made at least several calls or text messages while he was in the room.
Nobody tried to stop him from utilizing his cell phone?
No.
In your estimation, in looking at the interview and in your interaction with him, did Cristhian Rivera's physical condition ever deteriorate in any way?
No, he always seemed very engaged with Pamela.
What about his emotional state? Did he appear to deteriorate in any way?
No.
Was he able to, even though you couldn't understand the questions and answers, did he appear to be responding to Ms. Romero?
Yes, he did.
Was there ever any physical punishment that was used on Cristhian Rivera at any time?
No.
Even though this interview process took place over a period of approximately 11 hours, it was not all interview time. Is that right?
That's correct.
There is a form which was prepared by Agent Kivy, it states Exhibit 10. You can pull that up if you'd like. Exhibit 10 details the times, the length of the interview sessions, as well as the break times. Is that right?
That's correct.
Any reason to dispute the content of Exhibit 10
No.
in your mind?
No.
Was there any mental weakness at all that you observed in the interview and your interaction with Mr. Rivera?
No.
Any mental weakness or ability to lose any coherency at all in any interaction with him, whether it was in the interview or later?
No, like I said, he always appeared to be very engaged with us.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Cross-examination.
Agent Vileta, is it your testimony that Mr. Bahena did not appear to be tired?
I think we were all tired. There's a difference between being unable to be engaged with us, and he always just seemed to be ready to answer our questions.
Did he seem to be alert?
Yes.
Did he ever seem like he was falling asleep?
I don't recall that, no.
Well, you reviewed the video before coming in here today, right?
Yes.
And when you reviewed that video, did you notice any times where Mr. Rivera, whether it be during questioning or on a break, where he fell asleep?
I don't think he fell asleep. I remember one time that he pulled his hat down over his face.
And would you agree with me that someone who is tired and would be falling asleep, that they have perhaps issues with recalling incidents?
No, I mean, we talk to people all the time that have different stages of sleep, and as long as they're engaged with us and are coherent, I don't think that's a problem.
What training, education, or experience do you have in the area of sleep deprivation?
None.
And Mr. Brown just asked you if law enforcement made a calculated move to forget or not give Mr. Bahena one of his Miranda rights. I think your answer was no.
That's
right?
correct, yeah.
But it was law enforcement's calculated move to not read Mr. Bahena his Miranda warning until 11:30 p.m., right?
That's correct, yes.
And the purpose of that was to try to make Mr. Bahena comfortable and perhaps be more forthcoming with information, right?
Well, it was a voluntary interview, so when you present it as a voluntary interview, it has to be voluntary.
Because you're scared he might actually ask for a lawyer, right?
Objection is argumented.
Sustained.
What, or strike that, do you hold yourself out as some sort of expert in farming practices?
No, I think I've already said that.
Is it your testimony today that even without Mr. Bahena's statements and taking you to the location of the body, that Mollie Tibbetts would have been found anyway?
Yes, the field that we were in, very few weeds. I detasseled, I did a lot of farm work, I'm just not a farmer. Her shoes were like fluorescent. I believe the farmer would have saw her shoes first.
And you're basing that upon your experience as a detasseler?
I'm basing my opinion of being in that field. I would, and the farmers being extra alert when they do their
And you talked to that
crops.
particular farmer, I assume?
Someone did.
Who?
I don't know. I think we obtained consent to be out there from him, but I don't remember who was it did.
Have you been out to the farm since to see if there's any more evidence?
We did another search maybe a day or two later with the FBI team, but I have not been there since then.
You don't even know if the field's been harvested yet, do you?
No.
You're telling me that if the field has not been harvested yet, today, when there's snow on the ground, that you think that that body still would have been found?
I think the body would have been found once the field was harvested, yes.
Have you consulted with anyone who has actually been in a combine?
I've been in a combine before,
When's
yes.
the last time you were in a combine?
College, 25 years ago.
You know, combines move along 3-4 miles per hour, right?
Yep,
Sometimes you combine at night, right?
yes,
And they chop along about 5-6 inches above the ground.
yes,
And you're also making the assumption that the body would still be in the same location, aren't you?
yes.
I mean, that body could have been moved, couldn't it?
I suppose,
And it could have been moved by animals such as coyotes, right?
yes.
Raccoons or opossums, possibly.
No, I don't think a raccoon or a possum could move a human body.
Well, it could move part of it, couldn't it?
Maybe a part of it, yes.
Okay. And the body was in an advanced state of decomposition, right?
Yes, it was.
So your assumption is that the body stays fully intact in the same place until harvest, right?
I didn't say fully intact. I said that we would be able to find her there. Her shoes were still on her feet. There were articles of clothing there. So it would be my assumption that we would find parts of her there, yes.
Okay. And clothing was a sports bra?
Yes,
correct? And a pair of running shorts, correct?
yes.
Nothing else?
There was some electronic stuff that we never did find.
Haven't been back out to the field to find it since the harvest?
No,
No farmer has called in and said, hey, I've found electronics?
no,
And I assume the farmers that you were talking to, or whoever was talking to, have been put on alert or told to stay on alert?
This case was very well-known in this county. I can only assume that if a farmer found something, they would alert the sheriff's office.
And I assume there have been reports made about farmers calling in.
If they called in regarding finding something,
Or called in with concerns. And
I would assume there would at least be noted in a call for service.
okay. And you've returned all that over to the state?
I'm not aware of those calls, but that would go to the sheriff's office, not me.
Can you give us a number of how many farmers have called in?
That would be a better question for the sheriff's
Well,
office.
you're the case agent.
Yes.
I'm asking you, how many calls have been relayed to you from the sheriff's office that there are concerns?
I haven't received.
Objection, he's already indicated he doesn't know the calls would come to the sheriff, he has no knowledge of it.
Sustained.
I believe on direct examination, you said you spoke to over half the county, right?
That's probably a low number, but yes.
How many people are in Poweshiek County?
I used to know that at some time. I don't know now.
Is your testimony that no one's been back out to the scene to take photographs of the scene where the body was found to show us how it looks today for the purposes of that body would have been discovered no matter what?
I'm not aware of any photographs of that, no.
No testimony that anyone's been out there to see how the field looks today, right?
That's correct.
Are there unsolved murders in Iowa?
Lots,
Are there people who have disappeared in Iowa
yes.
and their remains or their locations have never been located, right?
Subject to relevance.
Overruled.
Yes, there's some people who have never been found.
In fact, there have been homicide cases that you yourself have investigated where the body was never located.
Yes, that's correct.
And when you were canvassing, as time went on, a website was set up, right?
Yes,
And that was set up by the DCI, correct?
yes,
It was
yes,
called findingmolly.iowa.gov, right?
yes.
And as we got into mid-August, the canvas didn't expand, it actually contracted, didn't it?
No, that's not correct at all.
Well, you put on the website 5 areas to focus on,
That's true.
and that was on August 14th, right?
That's true, yes.
And you were telling the public to focus on these 5 specific areas, right?
Yes,
And of those 5 specific areas, one of the areas was not where Ms. Tibbetts was located, was it?
well, so the website was constructed more for developing witnesses that would be in certain areas. It wasn't constructed solely for, this is the end-all product. We were continuously searching and expanding our searches.
And the large-scale searches with the 4-wheelers and the kayaks and the 150 people, those only lasted less than a week.
No, that's the major search, the first one I went to, that was like a community-based one. Then the fire department, we started using fire departments for more like target area searches, but that continued for quite some time.
But the organized or community searches, when did they end?
Well, there was the one big one, and then we just used firefighters, the FBI teams, law enforcement. That was ongoing.
And it's your testimony that this cornfield where Miss Tibbetts was found was never searched?
We hadn't got that far yet. It was, like I said, that was an area that we knew the phone had disappeared, but we had a wide area to search, so it was just an ever-expanding search.
And the area where the phone disappeared, that's what led you to search the area around, I believe, Mr. Cheney's home.
That one's hard to explain. Yes, partly was the reason, and the other part was past behavior of his.
How many FBI teams were involved in the canvassing?
Gosh, they were constantly bringing in different agents from all over. We had their FBI team out of Omaha, their, I think that's called Evidence Recovery Team. Gosh, I want to say 10 to 12 agents usually on that. And then, of course, they're just like everybody else. They have agents that cross-train, so they may have been on the Evidence Recovery Team at some point in their life and then go into a different specialty, just like the DCI does. So it's hard to say. If you're asking specifically for how many Evidence Recovery Teams, we had the one big one, and then we had numerous smaller teams.
And despite this, her body had not been located in a month.
That's correct.
And even when Mr. Rivera took officers to the location, it required him to actually get out of the vehicle and pinpoint right?
That's correct, yes.
During this investigation, I believe you also investigated some other locations where foreign-born nationals may have been located, right?
Yes, it was just part of the canvas.
Like Blattner Energy.
Yes.
Yet you didn't contact Homeland Security to go with you there.
No, we didn't. We did, though, have some Spanish speakers available to us that day.
You didn't have any Spanish speakers available to you other than Homeland Security on the 20th?
No, we were borrowing from a lot of departments. I remember North Liberty had sent us someone. Gosh, I can't think of the other county. We had a couple of troopers available every now and then, but ultimately they all had shifts to work and jobs to do too. So we used whoever was available.
Well, you contacted Homeland Security the day before.
We did.
Okay. And you didn't try to contact Coralville the day before.
No, but I don't know if we've ever used Coralville for anything.
But they've been involved in this case. You said that earlier.
Iowa City has.
Okay, Iowa City, I'm sorry.
Yes.
You didn't try to contact Iowa City before you went to Yerby Farms.
No, yeah, I don't know. I don't know that answer.
The point is, you knew you were going to run into illegal immigrants at Yerby Farms, didn't you?
We did, but that, like I think I previously testified, the immigration status wasn't a concern of ours. We just needed people that were skilled at talking to people with that status.
And when you went to Yerby Farms, you had 4 Homeland Security agents with you, right?
Yes,
And a total of 12 law enforcement officers went to Yerby Farms that day.
that sounds correct, yes.
And you only encountered Mexicans that day, right?
No, that's not true. I think there were, well, I think like maybe a owner or farm manager was there too.
You only requested to interview Hispanics.
Well, we requested to talk to everybody that was there, yes.
So you're saying the only people that were there were Hispanics?
You know, I wasn't there. I think there'll be someone testifying later that can clarify that, but I don't know for sure who all that was there.
So you weren't there when Mr. Rivera was asked to go in and discuss the case?
No, I was not at the farm.
You routinely ask individuals for permission to search a vehicle or their home, right?
Yes,
You routinely ask individuals to come to a location and be interviewed, right?
yes,
Voluntarily, right?
yes.
When you ask someone to come voluntarily, is it your practice to tell them that they aren't going to need an attorney?
No, I never said that.
Can you think of a situation where you would ever say that?
No.
And why not?
Like again, I said the whole point of it being a voluntary interview is they're free to go at any point. So when we Mirandize them, then they are given that opportunity to have an attorney. But I've never told someone they do not need an attorney.
Telling someone they aren't going to need an attorney affects the voluntariness of the interview, in your opinion?
I want to object. It's calling for a legal conclusion on behalf of the witness.
Sustained.
When Mr. Bahena got to the Poweshiek County Sheriff's Office, Agent Fischels of Homeland Security was still there, wasn't he?
No, I don't think he was there at all.
Well, if Agent Fischels provided us with a report that said he was at the Poweshiek County Sheriff's Office running Mr. Bahena's fingerprints, does it comport with your recollection?
You know, I was in the command center. That could very well be true, but I don't remember that.
And he's very well versed in the Spanish language, right?
Yes, he is.
He's more than qualified to conduct an interview.
Yes,
And he was there to assist with the Spanish interpretation that day, right?
yes.
Why on earth was he not used?
So, the Homeland Security guys, or ICE guys, they were very adamant that they don't want to be identified as ICE agents. Again, it wasn't their, we weren't there looking for like a deportation thing or anything like that. That was not a concern of ours. Like I said, their main purpose was they knew, I don't know, culturally better how to talk to immigrants than we did. So they wanted to keep their involvement limited. And then again, even though officials is proficient, it's not a language, it's not his first language like Pamela's was.
So is it your testimony that Ms. Romero, by virtue of it being her first language, is qualified to be an interpreter?
Oh, yes.
Has she ever been qualified through any court or any other accrediting agency to your knowledge?
Not that I'm aware of.
So just because she speaks Spanish, that's good enough for you?
Well, she did say she was like an immigrant who came here, gosh, I can't remember if she's 13 or 14. And Mike Fink, or Jeff Fink, I'm sorry, who's a senior officer in Iowa City, said that and he's proficient, he said that she would be much better than him.
Do you understand that there are steps and tests and accreditations that are done for translators and interpreters in this state?
I object to relevance.
Overruled. Witness may answer if he knows.
I would have no idea. Well, I understand that civilians can sometimes be registered as a translator.
And when Mr. Rivera got to the Poweshiek County Sheriff's Office, he was seated in the lobby, correct?
That's correct.
Is there a video of that lobby that was preserved?
There's no video, no.
No video because it wasn't preserved, or there is no video at the Poweshiek County Sheriff's Office?
I think they have a camera system there, but the sheriff's office, it wasn't recording at the time, or there was some difficulty with it ever recording. Again, that'd be the sheriff's office would be better to answer that than me.
Was there ever a period of time where family of Mr. Rivera showed up and was in the lobby?
They were there. Pamela would give you a better time frame on that than me because I think she actually met them. But he was kind of hands-off for me. I was in the command center. I don't remember seeing family, although I seem to remember like an aunt and uncle or something arriving at some point.
Do you know of any officers that spoke to family?
I think Pamela Romero did.
Do you know of at any point Mr. Bahena asked to speak to family?
He, again, God, Pamela would probably be better. I thought he wanted to talk to him somebody in the immigration thing, but I'm not recalling that very well.
Well, from what you can recall, from what you saw at the interview, he was Mirandized, right, at the immigration point?
Yes.
And do you recall at that point Mr. Bahena asking to speak to a family member?
There's something like that in the transcript, but Pamela can put that into context. I don't understand that context of that.
Then from your recollection, did Mr. Bahena ever get to speak to a family member?
I don't think he did, but again, Pamela would be better for that than me.
And it was at 11:30 that you said you were stuck in the interview, so you called in immigration to put the immigration detainer on him, right?
Yeah, we put him on the phone with Mike Fischels, yes.
And up to that point, he could have walked out that door and was free to leave.
Yes.
And this is despite the fact that you had a presumptive match for blood in his trunk, right?
Objections. Argumentative.
Overruled.
The decision was made to detain him when he had the presumptive blood in the trunk,
Okay, so when was that?
probably shortly before the detainer.
Let's go back and look at the video to find a time.
No, I do
Okay.
not know the time.
So we can trust that at whatever point he is confronted with presumptive blood, that's the time where he was no longer free to leave.
No, that's not true. No. It's when we got stuck in the interview. I think there was a feeling from the investigators that he might be done and that he might leave. So I misspoke when the blood wanted us to keep him there, but that was when we felt like he was basically done talking to us.
Okay. I want to know when you were told you had presumptive blood.
I don't remember that specific time.
So you were told by the people who found the blood in the trunk, the evidence team, that they had found blood in the trunk, right?
Yes,
At least presumptively.
yes.
And they wanted you to hold him, right?
No. The lab does not make those decisions.
So the moment they found presumptive blood in the trunk, and they also found a hair, right?
Yes.
Even having those pieces of evidence, it's your testimony that he could have got up and walked out of there.
Again, I don't remember the time frame and all that. That's just something that I did not probably review close enough.
Okay, well, let's just assume for argument's sake that it was an hour before you called immigration.
Okay.
I'm gonna object to the form of the question. By its nature is argumentative.
Overruled.
If it was an hour before, when you confronted him with the blood and the hair, are you telling me he was free to stand up and walk out that door?
I don't remember what her mindset was right then. To the best of my recollection was when we felt like that was blood in the car, we were going to keep talking to him until we could no longer talk to him. I can't predict what would have happened if he would have got up to leave. That didn't happen.
When you begin an interview with an individual, like in this case, great care was taken to show Mr. Bahena that there's the door, and the door is open.
Right.
What's the purpose of that?
Just to make sure that we want to make sure that they understand that they can leave when they want to leave.
Do you ever document it by saying, this is for my report?
No.
Can you think of a reason why you would?
I mean, sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. It's generally when they're video recorded, that would be on there. Like I said, sometimes it's noted in a report.
And if Mr. Bahena at any point would have got up and wanted to leave, he would have had to walk out that interview room door, down a hallway, and out another door. And then how would he have gotten home?
Well, he still had a cell phone, so he would have definitely had that ability. I mean, it's not uncommon for us with people in interviews for us to give them rides home. Again, you're asking me to predict something that didn't happen, so
Did anybody tell him, if you want to leave, we'll give you a ride home?
I don't remember that, no.
Did anyone, to your knowledge, your recollection, tell him that he had the right not to consent to the search of his car?
I wasn't there when they did the
You certainly
consent.
didn't do that.
Excuse me?
You certainly didn't do that.
No.
Now, the second time you got stuck in the interview, you kind of changed and pivoted your tactics a little bit, right?
Yes, it was a different approach, yes.
A little more confrontational, fair to say?
I don't think we were confrontational at all, I think.
Okay.
I was very respectful, actually.
Well, there was another officer in the room with you.
There was.
Who's that?
The FBI agent, Nick Potratz.
Okay. So if Potratz said to Mr. Bahena, you are fucking up big time, you don't consider that confrontational?
I mean, when you look at the context of everything, when we do the whole integrity theme, it's about owning up to mistakes. It's about realizing you made a mistake, trying to recover from it somehow. I think it could certainly be viewed as confrontational, but it was also could be viewed as trying to get him to understand the seriousness of everything that was going on. It's the context of the whole thing was, I mean, I was, I think, holding his hands at the time, just trying to appeal to his sense of integrity. I could see how people could view that as confrontational, but the intent, I think, was more of focus to understand that, you know, we were there for a serious matter.
And it's your testimony you offered no promises to Mr. Bahena.
Yeah, I think if you read that, I say that specifically. I can't promise him anything.
Well, I did read it, and at the transcript provided by the government, you stated, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you told Mr. Bahena, if you are honest with us, we can talk to the people who make the decisions. You recall saying that?
That's just one sentence in the context of the conversation.
Well, what do you mean by that?
Well, it's easy. What I mean by that is, because I later on, just I think a few sentences down, I say, you understand I can't make you any promises. I can just promise to tell the attorneys or something that you feel badly for making a mistake.
But then a few pages later, you then tell him, but things get worse for you if you continue to lie to us. Recall saying that?
Of course, yes.
And how do things get worse for Mr. Bahena if he continues to lie to you?
Well, again, if you look at the context of the conversation, it was how I was viewing him as a person, how I was viewing him as a man. We can't, law enforcement, we're not in a position to make deals or offer immunity, anything like that. But we can let them, and we've done this before, we've told prosecutors they were cooperative. I have no idea if that ever has any bearing at all on anything that the prosecutors do, but that's about all we can offer them. If he continues to be uncooperative, I can't even offer that. So it does get worse. It makes it look, instead of a person with integrity that has that's made a mistake, it makes them look like someone with no remorse.
You also then go on to say, we need to figure out what it is you can remember. And I'm going to promise you right now, I will not be mad. Recall saying that?
Yes, and again, with the context of it, I was being respectful, and I kind of felt, and again, it's hard through translation, I felt that he thought I was being respectful to him, and I didn't want him to lose that, I guess, rapport between the two of us.
But you just stated a few minutes ago that you worry things get lost in translation, right?
Absolutely, I do.
And you're not worried when you say things like this to someone who speaks virtually no English, that using words like promise or talking to people who make the decisions won't get lost in translation?
Objection, it's argumentative.
Sustained.
Even though you're saying this, Mr. Rivera keeps telling you he doesn't know what happened to Ms. Tibbetts, right?
He does say that.
And that's when the Special Agent Potratz tells Mr. Bahena, you're fucking up, right?
Yes.
We got a good cop, bad cop thing going on here, kind of, don't we?
It kind of evolved to that. Again, it's. I think you could perceive it either way. Yes.
And then you calmly and nicely, I believe you're very close to his space, say to Mr. Bahena, we've been nice to you, and we want to stay nice. You recall saying that?
Yes.
And what was the purpose of that?
Again, it's all my interviews are very respectful to people. With the theme of integrity being involved, it was me trying to convey to him that I don't want to perceive him as a bad person. So it was me more trying to convey to him that he made a horrible mistake and he felt bad about it.
And is that when Mr. Bahena asked to speak to Ms. Romero?
I think that was around the point, yes.
And were you the one that said, "We are not gonna play"? Or was that Agent Potratz?
Doesn't sound like something I would say.
Whatever Agent Romero said in Spanish, of course, you don't understand.
No.
When you were driving from the Poweshiek County Sheriff, let's back up first. At the point in the interview where it becomes apparent that Mr. Bahena may have had something to do with Ms. Tibbetts' disappearance, no one asked him about her phone. You recall that?
No, I don't recall asking her
It
about her phone.
It became very quickly moving into, let's take us to the body. The interview kind of stopped. Would you agree with that?
Yes, you're right, it did stop there.
Why?
How do I want to say this? The cost benefit of it, if he wants to take us to the body, that's more important than to, say, ask about where her phone might be. Our ultimate goal was to give Mollie back to her parents. That was kind of how we operated everything. So if he was ready and willing to go, we're going to keep the focus on that.
She went from the Poweshiek County Sheriff's Office to the scene. How long did it take to get from the Sheriff's Office to the scene?
From the point of when we stopped talking to when we got there, how specific do you want me to be?
That's specific.
I want to say, God, it had to be a minimum of 30 minutes. It seems like we took a while to get loaded up and going. I would assume, I don't remember if Mr. Rivera went to the bathroom. I think a couple of us did. And then getting the cars arranged. I want to say it was maybe 30 to 45 minutes, maybe from the time we stopped to the time we got out there.
And did Mr. Bahena have to use his Google Maps on his phone or anything to get you there?
He mentioned that he might need that, but I wasn't in the car with him, so my assumption that he was just directing us there by memory.
Does your car have camera capabilities?
I rode with the sheriff, so I believe I rode in a pickup. I don't know if there was camera abilities on there.
Nothing further.
Redirect.
Agent Vileta, despite whatever tactics were used in the interview by you, Agent Potratz, Jeff Fink, or Pamela Romero, was Cristhian Rivera still able to take you to Mollie Tibbetts?
Yes.
Did law enforcement have any knowledge whatsoever as to the location of Mollie Tibbetts prior to Cristhian Rivera taking you and others to her?
No, and quite frankly, I didn't think he was even going to take us there.
I understand that, but there's nothing that you could have suggested to him that would have planted that fact in his mind, correct?
No.
Anything that law enforcement had to do with Mollie Tibbetts' blood being in the trunk of the Malibu driven by Cristhian Rivera.
Objection
No.
leading.
Overruled.
Didn't have anything to do with putting it there, correct?
No, we did not.
Did the blood in the trunk have anything at all to do with the interview?
No.
And by the way, if there was anything that was discussed about blood in the trunk, that would be in the transcript, correct?
Yes.
Nothing has been edited out to your knowledge,
No.
right? Or left out on purpose, anything of that nature?
No, I believe that's true and accurate transcript.
Anything at all Agent Vileta, that the interview had to do with putting Cristhian Rivera in the location where Mollie was last seen?
No,
The surveillance video is completely independent of the interview. Is that right?
that's correct, yes.
Actually, it was known, the surveillance video, the content of that was known before you ever got to Cristhian Rivera to talk to him, right?
That's correct, yes.
That's all. Thanks.
Any redirect?
No.
I'm sorry, any recross?
No.
Agent, thank you for being here. You're excused. With that, we'll be done for the morning. We'll take our lunch recess. We'll be back ready to go at 1 o'clock then. Thank you, everyone.